Good morning, 7th grade. Today is the last assignment of the school year. If you have any missing assignments, please get them done between now and Friday so I can get all your grades in for the year. All of you have been marvelous students. I can't wait to see you guys as 8th graders. If I see you in Columbia this summer, say hello, okay? Today is chapter 15. I may also throw in 16. I hope you take the time to read the last 20 pages of the book on the PDF. If you don't, that's fine. But for those of you like me, I am going to finish the book, and I will post the YouTube, so you're welcome to check them out if you'd like to listen along. All right? 15. They woke early. The sun was just rising, and through the window, Maddie could see the gardens were bathed in amber light. Thick around a tall trellis, a vine that had been simply green when he arrived the day before was now profuse with opened blue and white morning glories. Beyond the trellis, on tall stalks, tiny aster blossoms, deep pink with golden centers, trembled in the dawn breeze. He felt her presence suddenly and turned to see Kira standing behind him, looking out. "It will be hard for you to leave this," he said. But she smiled and shook her head. "It's time. I always knew the time would come. I told my father that long ago. He says you'll have a garden there. He wanted me to tell you that." She nodded. "Eat quickly, Maddie, and we will go. I have fed Frolic already." "Do you need help?" Maddie asked, his mouth full of the sweet muffin she had given him, as he watched her arrange a wrapped bundle on her back, crisscrossing the straps that held it around her chest. "What's in it?" "No, I can do it just fine. It's my frame and some needles and thread." "Kira, the journey is hard and long. There won't be time to sit and sew." And then Maddie fell quiet. Of course she needed this. It was the way her gift came. She had put food inside Maddie's pack as well as in his rolled blanket. It was heavier than it had been coming, for there were two of them now, but Maddie felt strong. He was almost relieved she had not allowed him to mend her leg. It would have weakened him badly, cost them perhaps several days as he rested from it, and sent them out less prepared and more vulnerable. He could see, too, that she was accustomed to her stick and twisted leg. A lifetime of walking in that way had made it, as she pointed out, part of her. It was who she was. To become a fast-riding Kira with two straight legs would have been too different a person. This was not a journey Maddie would undertake with a stranger. "Frolic, if you were a little bigger and less frisky, I would strap a pack to your back," Kira said, laughing to the eager puppy, who stood beside the door with its tail churning in the air. He could tell they were leaving. He was not going to be left behind. Soon they were loaded with everything they had packed so carefully the night before. "We're ready then," Kira announced, and Maddie nodded in agreement. From the open doorway, with Frolic already outside sniffing the earth, they looked back to the large room that had been Kira's home since she had been a young girl. She was leaving the loom, the baskets of yarn and thread, the dried herbs on the rafters, the wall hangings, the earthen mugs and plates made for her by the village potter, a handsome wooden tray that was a gift long ago from her friend Thomas, who had carved it with intertwined, complicated designs. From hooks along the wall hung her clothes, things she had made, some of them skirts and jackets rich with embroidered, appliqued designs. Today she was wearing her simple blue dress and a heavy knitted sweater with buttons made from small flat stones. She closed the door on all of it. "Come, Frolic," Maddie called unnecessarily. The dog scampered them and raised his leg one last time on the doorsill, saying in his way, "I've been here." Maddie moved toward the place where the path entered forest. Kira, leaning on her stick, followed him, and Frolic, ears up, came behind. "You know," Kira said, "I've walked that forest path between this cottage and the center of my village so many times." "Of course you know that, Maddie. You did it with me when you were a little boy." "I did, again and again. But I've never once entered forest. There was no need, of course, and it always seemed frightening somehow." They had barely entered, and behind them the light of the clearing still showed, a corner of Kira's little house. But ahead, Maddie could see the path was oddly dark. He didn't remember it being so dark. "Are you frightened now?" he asked her. "Oh, no, not with you. You know forest so well." "That's true, I do." It was true, but even as he said it, Maddie felt a sense of discomfort, though he hid it from Kira. The path ahead did not seem to be as familiar as it had always been. He could tell it was the same path. The turnings were the same, as he led her around the next one. The clearing behind them was no longer visible, but things that had seemed easy and accustomed no longer did. Everything felt a little different, slightly darker, and decidedly hostile. But he said nothing. He led the way, and Kira, despite her handicap, trudged after him. They have entered. Leader turned from the window. He had stood there a long moment intent, focused, while beside him, the blind man waited. They had did this for days. Leader sat to rest. He breathed hard. He was accustomed to this, the way his body temporarily lost its vigor and needed to restore itself after he had looked beyond. The blind man gave a sigh that was clearly one of relief. So she came with him? Leader nodded, still not ready to talk. I worried she wouldn't. It meant leaving a lot behind, but Maddie convinced her. Good for him. Leader stretched and sipped from the glass of water on his desk. He was able to speak. She didn't need convincing. She could tell it was time. She has that gift. The blind man went to the window and stood there listening. Heavy dragging sounds and thuds were accompanied by shouts. Over here. Put it down there. Watch out. They could hear Mentor's voice loud above the others. Stack them right there, he directed. 5 to a stack. You idiot. Stop that. If you aren't going to help, go someplace else. Leader winced. It was such a short time ago he was so patient and soft-spoken. Now listen to him. Tell me how he looks, the blind man said. Leader went to the window and looked down at the place where they were preparing to build the wall. He found Mentor in the crowd. His bald spot is completely gone, he said. He's taller, or at least stands straighter. He's lost weight, and his chin is firmer than it was. A strange trade for him to have made, the blind man commented. Leader shrugged. For a woman, he pointed out, people do strange things. I suppose it's too soon for you to look beyond again. The blind man was still at the window, his posture uneasy. Leader smiled. You know it is. They've only just entered. They're fine. How much time do they have? 10 days. The wall can't go up for 10 days according to the edict. It is enough time. Maddie is like a son to me. It's as if both my children are out there. I know. Leader put a reassuring arm across the blind man's shoulders. Come back here tomorrow morning. We will look again. I will go work in my garden. I'm preparing flower beds for Kira. Good idea. It'll take your mind from the worry. When Seer had gone, Leader stood at the window for a while. He listened to the wall builders at their preparations. He was very worried himself. He had not told the blind man, but while he had watched Maddie, Kira, and the puppy enter Forest, he had been able to see too that Forest was shifting, moving, thickening, and preparing to destroy them. That is a very ominous last sentence. I'm going to post this one to YouTube, and I'm going to give you guys the next chapter because that's only a 7-minute chapter. All right? The next chapter is about 8 or 9 minutes. It's also pretty short.